Welcome to SVG-TV News for Friday, August 18th, 2017. I am Jennifer Richardson with the details. St. Vincent and the Grenadines was spared from a direct hit of Tropical Storm Harvey. The country was under tropical storm warning since last evening. The warning was, however, discontinued around 2 p.m. today. The system is moving westward at 21 miles per hour with maximum sustained winds near 40 miles per hour. According to Met Services, the remnants of Tropical Storm Harvey will continue to affect the island with general scattered showers, occasional gusty winds, and isolated thunderstorms. Director of the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, Michelle Forbes, says Harvey's passing over the island today can be considered pretty quiet. Forbes said there were some reports of flooding both on the mainland and in the Grenadines, but no major damage.
As we can see, some improvements happening in this afternoon. So far for the last 24 hours, we have had some reports of flooding, mainly in Sandy Bay, Owe, Fancy, and Port Elizabeth, Beckway. Only 2 homes so far have reported damage in Edinburgh and in Calico. We have had 15 persons in shelter at the moment. Up to this time, we still have 15 persons in emergency shelters. So it has been pretty quiet. Not much damage reported, but following the all clear, which we anticipate will be given this afternoon, we will commence our assessments.
Forbes, however, took the opportunity to advise Vincentians to continue to develop a state of readiness for natural disasters and appeal to house owners who have hanging trees to ensure that they are trimmed, thus reducing the incidences of damage to property or blocked roads.
We have noticed also for persons, homeowners especially, who have their private homes or lands alongside the main highways. A lot of overhanging trees over those highways, and we really ask and appealing to the private homeowners to trim those trees, because if we have a strong event, then let's say Harvey, and a lot of strong winds, all those trees can actually or the limbs can actually break off and impede the emergency services and the agencies for getting to the persons who may need us to get to them or to actually clear these roads. So we're still appealing to persons. We are not yet in the peak of the hurricane season, or we're just entering the peak, not to be complacent. We have actually had several events this year already that we have had to activate. We saw what happened in November last year in terms of the rainfall, and we still yet have not reached that peak. So we expect in September, October, November to still have a lot of heavy rainfall, a lot more systems coming across as we enter the peak. So to be vigilant and to continue your preparations and be ready.
All emergency shelters are being closed except for those which are housing families who have been affected by the passage of the storm. Operations at the Argyle International Airport have also resumed. And with the moderate to heavy rains experienced last night into early today as Harvey passed over the island, residents of one community banded together to prevent what they perceived as a disaster. SVG-TV understands that the waterway of the main bridge at Calico was blocked and residents joined together to have it cleared. SVG-TV News team caught up with 2 of the residents who were instrumental in getting the blockage cleared.
And I saw a lot of debris come down, and other people joined with me, and we clean it out. So then we don't know, we have more stuff up there to come down, so we just have to keep a watch. But it need to take more care of this river, because it's definitely dangerous. And if we didn't clean it this morning, later on, we might get a bigger flood. So that is all I have to say. Every storm pass through on the river flow, I all time me move. Right, I got my water boots and I go up top, bottom, and see what's going on. But this one was very dangerous. The water was black here and the water going left and right and so on. And it's about 2 weeks, I must say again, I asked to get this place clean and nobody turned up. But we joined and cleaned it this morning.
Come and see, well, it's in danger, and I jumped down in there and start to check and move the rubbish, and they said they're going for a backhoe, the backhoe don't go, I jump back down in there and clear it like a backhoe. That's all.
Okay, how difficult was it?
Well, everybody was scared for me. They tied a piece of rope around me, and they was telling me, come back up, and I didn't want to come back up, and I just continue and I clear it.
The Red Cross Association also wasted no time in activating its disaster response plan as the weather system moved towards the country. President of the association, Bernard Morgan, said that the organization disseminated its task force and they had been given feedback as to the conditions in the various communities.
We mobilize volunteers and the members of CBRT teams throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines and put them on full alert in the expectation of the response to this storm. So during the last 6 or 7 hours, we have been monitoring events. People have been reporting from the different villages in the north leeward and north windward. We have seen some videos coming in from them on the situation in terms of flooding and landslides in those areas. But there is no report to us in terms of people injured, houses that were damaged or destroyed. And so we are waiting now on the all clear from the government so that we can go out and do our rapid assessment of damage and needs.
Morgan said the volunteers of the Red Cross must be praised for their commitment and made an appeal for others to become members of the organization.
The thing about the Red Cross is that we are a humanitarian organization and we are ready to deal with the human needs, immediate needs. For example, shelters, need for blankets, need for food, those immediate needs that people may have. And we are appealing to people who have the capacity to come out and also the willingness and the heart to join the Red Cross, not only in these times, but also in normal times, so that we could render assistance to people, especially people, older, elderly people who have issues with the chronic non-communicable diseases like diabetes, hypertension. We could make visits to them, we could help them with taking their medications and all those sort of things.
Meantime, the Beckwith community seemed to have been the hardest hit by the weather system, with a total power shutdown earlier this morning. According to the St. Vincent Electricity Services VINLEC Communications Officer Tamara Sprott, her team was able to restore power within an hour after the shutdown, which was caused by flooding at their power site. Sprott also pointed out that there were a few other areas that were without electricity for a brief time, but the VINLEC team was able to address the issue.
Earlier this morning, we lost power on the north of the island, but we were able to restore that in just about an hour. We had some pockets of electricity out on mainland in a number of areas, and our teams were able to go into these areas and do some restoration work. Our biggest challenge was on Beckwith, and that is because the power station was flooded out, so the entire island was shut down. This morning, that's Beckwith. We were able to do some work. The team on Beckwith was able to clean the power station, and so at about 1 o'clock, a large percentage of the customer base on Beckwith had electricity. So we intend to work into the afternoon to see how we can restore power to as many customers as possible on Beckwith. We also had some issues on the transmission and distribution section of Beckwith, and our crews are also on site and trying to restore power.
The VINLEC Communications Officer appealed to persons to take the necessary precautions during this hurricane season and to share information about electrical outages and power lines in their communities at phone number 456-1540.
Just to let persons know, though, that our work to restore electricity in the event it's lost is usually done only if it's safe for us to continue to do work or even to commence work. So for us, safety is a priority. We want to remind persons to desist from touching down power lines. We encourage persons to call to report faults and emergencies, and they can do so by calling 456-1540, and they can also send WhatsApp messages or send pictures so we can have an idea what's happening in the country.
With the effects of climate change being evident in the weather patterns, Executive Director of the Caribbean Policy Development Center, the CPDC, Gordon Bishfam, is calling on farmers here and throughout the Caribbean to be more attentive to their crops. The CPDC head, who was speaking at a workshop on promoting sustainable livelihoods among Eastern Caribbean farmers earlier this week, said that sometimes weather patterns could influence the price market of produce and encourage farmers to be savvy in how they set their prices. He said that too often farmers jack up their prices and the consumer is unable to purchase.
Recognize that farming is a business. And if you're going to sell your product, you have to have an idea what it costs you to produce. And then you can make an informed decision. Yes, we go down to the market and we recognize that sometimes cucumbers are selling at $1 a pound and tomatoes are selling at $2 a pound. But if you know and you're secure in the fact that you've only used 65 cents to produce that pound of tomato, and things are tight with the consumers, then you can get together as farmers and say, look, we can reduce our price to $1.50 because we know we're still being profitable. Because we have to have a win-win situation. It doesn't serve us any good to produce thousands of pounds of produce on the farm and then you can't get them sold. We know that we are in some very stressful economic times and governments are looking for revenue streams. We're also looking to ensure that businesses keep people employed so that they can continue to buy. The purchasing power of the citizens must remain.
Bishfam also pointed out that farmers are the chief managers of food security and urged them to take their skills seriously.
We have to recognize that in these crises of fuel, food, and energy and finance, primary producers, meaning farmers, are going to become more important. The whole question of food security is laid squarely in the hands of farmers. We have some big farmers and we have some fairly big farms, but most of the food is produced by small farmers right across the Caribbean. Even in a massive country like Guyana, most of the food is still produced by 70% small farmers. So small farmers have an integral role and a very important role to continue to play in providing that nutritious food for.
The Farmers' Workshop was held in collaboration with the Windward Islands Farmers Association, WINFA, the European Union and Pro-NGO. The areas touched upon included smart agriculture, increasing productivity, improved farming practices, marketing and financial management. The 89th group of Peace Corps volunteers here have been encouraged to teach and learn as much as they can during their stint in the country. The encouragement came from head of the UWI Open Campus, Deborah Dalrymple, who delivered the feature address at a swearing-in ceremony of the volunteers earlier this week at French's house. Dalrymple stated that Peace Corps have many roles, which include promoting cross-cultural tolerance between the United States and the country they serve, and that with open-mindedness, the volunteers will soon call SVG home.
The goals of the Peace Corps involve the encouragement of cross-cultural tolerance and understanding between Americans and the people of the countries where they serve. This cannot be done by simply going to work, but through immersion in the community. It is through community living that you learn the norms and mores of the country in which you are assigned. And it is by your example and through your lenses that we see the real America and not simply the Hollywood version. Notwithstanding the expected homesickness and maybe some apprehension in living in a country not your own, you will find that with open-mindedness, a minimum of prejudgment, because we know that there's a Hollywood version of developing countries as well, and cultural sensitivity, you would find yourself at home in quite short order and discover that at our core, we are not so different after all.
Using the example of her childhood, where a volunteer from another organization tried to teach her and her peers how to swim, Dalrymple highlighted how volunteers can add value to the lives of the people they serve.
She would line us up, and within a few minutes of trying the backstroke or the breaststroke, we start pulling each other and diving and totally have a chaotic time rather than a structured one. Eventually, some of us did improve and saw some method to the madness. But it was not until much later that I realized that she was trying to add value to what we already knew and attempting to make us better swimmers. So in other words, you have to be conscious of the culture in which you're in, at the same time, be brave enough to try to add value. I know that you will be placed in communities throughout the country, Rose Hall, Spring Village, Chateaubriand, Ovia, Stubbs, Langley Park, Richland Park, and Diamonds. I want to wish you all the very best during your tenure in our country, and to congratulate the Peace Corps for over 50 years of service to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thank you very much.
Deputy Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy, Laura Grismer, said she is always impressed by the impact which Peace Corps volunteers have on the communities they serve, and encouraged the volunteers to take home with them the valuable experiences they would have gained.
The really important things that you do, which is taking your experience back with you. And I know that because my cousin was a volunteer in Belize and took back her husband with her. And part of our family now goes every year to Belize to visit. And let me just say, that's part of the family that never would have traveled otherwise. So it really opened a lot of people's eyes. So I hope that you have a similar experience, not necessarily taking home a spouse, but taking home friends and experiences that you'll never forget. So I hope that each of you has a fantastic Peace Corps experience over the next 2 years. You represent the very best values and promise of the United States, and I know you'll do all of us very proud. On behalf of the people of the United States, I want to thank you for your selfless and meaningful service. Best of luck to all of you.
As the annual Summer Crash program comes to a close, some of the participants have been expressing elation at the opportunity to take part in this year's program. The 2 weeks program held at the Chumuka, Ontario Secondary School will conclude this weekend with a back-to-school fair at the school where children will participate in a number of fun activities. On a visit here at Dorchester Hill, several of the children expressed gratitude for the opportunity to take part in the program and said they are hoping to return next year.
I had fun. I did a lot of socializing. I made new friends. My favorite part of the program was when we did the beach cleanup, because I'm glad that the only thing we didn't have to do was clean up the beach. We had fun. We had a little sports, like a little bit of competitive sports. Yes, it was very interesting and enjoying. And I hope I can come next year.
My favorite part was the hike. Even though I didn't went on the hike, I still had fun because I played and I got to watch a movie. I really enjoyed the program. My best part was making a remote control car, and I met a lot of friends. I wish I could come back next year, and it will be nice as this year. We have go on hike and we have sports and do lunch and break. That's it.
Alright, you want to go on this program again next year?
Yes, please. I like this stuff. I have too long education and get plenty education. And I learn new stuff and get friends. And I play. This year was very fun. We did a lot of interacting with each other. We did hikes, we did bus tours, we did IT, we did crafts. It was a very educational and fun program, and I would love to come back next year, but unfortunately it's my last year.